The car rumbled down the dusty road. John, a young writer, was on his way to Blackwood House. He had rented the old mansion for the summer. He needed peace and quiet to finish his book. Locals whispered that the house was haunted, but John didn't believe in ghost stories. He pulled into the overgrown driveway. The house loomed over him, dark and imposing. The paint was peeling and the windows were boarded up. John took a deep breath. He couldn't deny a shiver ran down his spine. It was just the wind, he told himself. He unlocked the front door, heavy and creaky. Inside, the house was dark and silent. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decay. John flicked on a light switch. Nothing. He fumbled for his flashlight. He would have to buy some bulbs in town tomorrow. John spent the next few days unpacking and settling in. He tried to ignore the strange noises he heard at night. The floorboards creaked. The wind howled in the chimney. Sometimes he thought he heard whispers, soft and indistinct. He dismissed it all as his imagination, playing tricks on him in the silence of the old house. One afternoon, while he was working on his book, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He felt a cold spot wash over him, though there was no draft. He turned slowly, expecting to see something, but there was nothing there. That night he had a nightmare. He dreamt of a shadowy figure, tall and skeletal, its eyes glowing red in the dark. He woke up with a scream, his heart pounding in his chest. Looking around the room, he could have sworn he saw something move in the shadows. Determined to shake off the uneasy feeling, John decided to explore the house. He found an old, dusty library. The shelves were lined with ancient books, their leather covers cracked and faded. As he browsed the titles, a book on the bottom shelf caught his eye. It was bound in what looked like human skin. John pulled the book off the shelf. It was a diary, written in a spidery, faded ink. He opened it and began to read. The words described horrifying events that had happened in the house, culminating in a gruesome murder. The writer claimed the house was cursed, possessed by an evil entity. Suddenly, the room felt colder. John heard a blood-curdling scream echo through the house. It was not a human scream, it was something ancient, something evil. John slammed the diary shut and ran out of the library, his blood running cold. John stumbled back to his room, his heart pounding in his chest. He locked the door and huddled under the covers, too terrified to move. Every creak of the house, every sigh of the wind sounded like the footsteps of the entity from the diary. He lay awake all night, listening. Just when he thought the sun might be about to rise, he felt a cold breath on his face. Something was in the room with him. He could feel its presence, heavy and malevolent. "Who's there?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The silence stretched thick and heavy. Then he heard a voice, a raspy whisper right next to his ear. "You shouldn't be here." John squeezed his eyes shut, afraid of what he might see if he opened them. He didn't want to know what was in the room with him. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Get out, while you still can." John didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled out of bed and ran towards the door, throwing it open and fleeing into the night. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of his car. As he drove away, he could see the silhouette of the house in his rearview mirror, dark and menacing against the rising sun. John never went back to Blackwood House, but sometimes in his nightmares he still hears the whisper, chilling him to the bone. And he can't help but wonder, what would have happened if he had stayed?